Please, loafer. Yeah, keep your hands where I can see them. Come on, you know the drill. Got any stuff on you? Huh? Whoa, what's this? Those are my nuts. This is bad. Would you rather be on the other side of this search? You want me to grab your nuts? Whoa, yeah, you two. Come on, sweetheart. Join the party. Keep your hands where I can see them. Dad, you gotta cut the crap with these shakedowns. Oh, you're gonna be a good cop, Cordy. It'll change your life. Well, look what it's done for your mom and your sister. What is this crap? Wrestling. Cordy. Wrestling's fake. Wrestling's not fake!
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick, a Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel, Alvin and the Chipmunks deserving of the squeak. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
R. Yo ho ho. Shiver me timbers. These are things you might hear uttered on International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Created in 1995 by John Bauer and Mark Summers of Albany, Oregon, the premise is simple. Every year on September 19th, citizens of Earth are invited to speak as if they were sailing the high seas and doing unspeakable things to anyone on or near a boat, beach, or barge. But evil acts and present-day pirates aside, fictional pirates are fun and have entertained us for years in popular culture. Everyone loves to hate Captain Hook, nemesis of Peter Pan, or his successor, Rufio. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island has captivated readers and viewers of its many film adaptations like 1920's Treasure Island, 1934's Treasure Island, or even 1972's Treasure Island. And in 1985, the world fell in love with One-Eyed Willie in Goonies, set 60 miles from the spot where Talk Like a Pirate Day was created. More recently, television audiences were captivated by Rhys Darby in Taika Waititi's television series Our Flag Means Death, in which Darby portrays gentleman pirate Stede Bonnet and Waititi plays the legendary Blackbeard. Captain of Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard ran a crew of 300 men and used clever theatrics to make himself appear more intimidating to his crew and their targets. That may also be why he became an interesting subject for filmmakers like Waititi and also Raoul Walsh, who directed Robert Newton as Blackbeard in a performance that would be credited as the genesis of the stereotypical pirate voice. And one entertainer named Paul Burchill even claimed to be Blackbeard's great-great-great-great-great-grandson during an appearance on WWE's Friday Night SmackDown. World Wrestling Entertainment, formerly known as World Wrestling Federation, is the largest pro wrestling organization and has promoted talents like Rowdy Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But WWE has certainly had plenty of rival organizations. AEW, out of Jacksonville, Florida, launched the careers of Kenny Omega, CM Punk, and Samoa Joe. NWA, owned by alt-rocker Billy Corgan, featured Iron Sheik, Dusty Rhodes, and Ric Flair. Woo! But one heavy-hitting organization that is now defunct is World Championship Wrestling, or WCW. Notable wrestlers who fought for WCW include Bill Goldberg, Sting, and Diamond Dallas Page. In addition to their wrestling prowess, these three wrestlers all have decent speaking roles in this episode's film. Greetings, Starfighters, this is Ruined Childhoods, and on this episode we cover the 2000 pro wrestling comedy, Ready to Rumble. But if it were September 19th, I'd ask, are you ready to rumble? Dan, what wrestling elements did I get wrong?
Okay, so AEW did not introduce the world.
I didn't say introduce.
What? Well, how did you phrase it again?
For AEW, well, I did say launch the career.
It did not launch the career of CM Punk.
Okay, but the other one, Samoa Joe and Kenny Omega.
Actually, no, it did not. So, all right. So Samoa Joe, it did not launch the career of either Samoa Joe or CM Punk, who were already big stars by the time they came to AEW. Samoa Joe is in fact still there. CM Punk is back in WWE.
Samoa Joe also is an actor as
Yes.
well,
Yes.
appearing in the Peacock series Twisted Metal. Physically, not by
Yeah.
voice. Will
Yeah.
Arnett does his voice.
Yeah, but he's done, and he's appeared in other films kind of similarly, more for the physicality. Samoa Joe is an impressive wrestler. So but I mean that was mainly it, but I had written down, as soon as you were talking about pirates, I was like, oh, Paul Burchill is the perfect crossover here. So I was very pleased to hear you reference Pirate Paul Burchill, who, by the way, was involved in a storyline. It was a quasi-romantic storyline with his storyline sister, Katie Lee Burchill.
Okay.
Yeah, it was weird, but yeah, he did a pirate gimmick in WWE, and
I couldn't find too much about him online in my research, and I was like, I think that what I have is probably enough to get me from point A to point B.
It was, and as they say, the wrestling business is cyclical in terms of its kind of mainstream popularity, and also its, I guess, higher quality years. And Pirate Paul Burchill was kind of in a between area in like the early 2000s, when it was a lot of the stars of the attitude era, like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart was gone. Shawn Michaels came back in 2002, but a lot of the big like stars who made wrestling mainstream were kind of out of the picture, whether it was like long-term injuries, like with Austin by that time.
I'm noticing your shirt, by the way.
I am, representing
for our Spotify and YouTube viewers.
My all-time favorite in-ring performer, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yep. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, well, okay, so my wrestling, let me go into it here. So first of all, if you're a new listener, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And if you're joining us for the first time because of the movie Ready to Rumble, chances are you'll be okay with me being ready to ramble about pro wrestling.
How long have you been sitting on that one?
About 5 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Hand to God. Like, just...
I was going to say, this whole podcast could be called Ready to Ramble.
Nope. That just, came up. I, as they say, called it in the ring there. But, anyway.
Also, just real quick, Dan loves wrestling.
I was just about to get to that.
I barely know nothing about wrestling. Go on.
You barely know nothing about wrestling.
I barely know nothing about wrestling and double negatives.
You barely know anything about wrestling. I knew very little. So let me just spend a minute here giving my background.
A brief history of Dan's fascination with pro wrestling.
Okay, so we have a prologue that takes place around 1985, 1986, 1987, in the days of Hulkamania and my favorite wrestler of that era, Roddy Piper.
I knew you were going to say Rowdy Piper.
I love Roddy Piper. I have autographed They Live sunglasses from Roddy Piper.
Very cool. We need to do They Live.
Oh, absolutely. It's a matter of time.
I believe it's on our list for our potential next season.
Yes.
It fits into that category.
It's all, anyway, like, we're not here to talk about They Live because we can't start talking about They Live. I won't stop.
Okay.
But loved Roddy Piper at the time, came to appreciate Macho Man Randy Savage in my later years, going back and watching a lot of his old work, though I certainly remembered a Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat feud. I remember going over to my friend's house, going over to Scott Dobrin's house in 1980, would have been in 85 or 86 to watch.
So shout out to your childhood friend Scott Dobrin if you're listening.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool, and we appreciate it. And hey, how's it going? But I feel like he was kind of like your pro wrestling buddy.
He's the one who kind of got me into it then, but I was always like, I was never really that into it because there was just, I mean, honestly, like it seemed fake, and I'm not saying that it will. And also that was the WWF style of wrestling, apparently in other territories. So wrestling used to run in territories, geographical territories. So, you'd have the Northeast, which was mostly the, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which later became World Wrestling Federation,
based out of Connecticut.
Based out of Connecticut. Yes. Run by Vince McMahon Sr.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that there was
or Vince
senior.
Jess McMahon. I think Jess was the other father, but yeah, no, there was Vince McMahon Sr. who ran that territory, and then there was the Mid-South territory that I think was run by the Crockett family. So like their TV was known as Jim Crockett Promotions, which later kind of became absorbed into World Championship Wrestling.
And if I'm not mistaken, I feel like I remember that one, and please correct me if I'm wrong, which is likely the case. But when I was watching the movie The Iron Claw, isn't that the outfit that they came out of?
They came out of World Class Championship Wrestling.
Okay, I just thought that the name sounded familiar. Okay, but
that was the Dallas, right? That was the Dallas territory run by Fritz von Erich. You also had the Houston territory that was run by, Paul Bosch.
Okay,
ran the Houston.
Titus Welliver.
So yeah.
Sorry, I know Welliver. Amazon series. You know wrestling.
No, I know who you're talking about, and I thought about it, and I was like, oh, wait a second, he would be great as a wrestling promoter. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not going to I don't need to go through all the territories, but basically the WWF was what we saw in New Jersey. And
so, okay, I, growing up, was under the impression that WWF was like the big one.
Yes.
Okay, is that true? Or was that just because we were geographically positioned to be in a place where that was true?
Yes and yes, because it became the big one because Vincent Kennedy McMahon, that one, the current
McMahon and Kennedy. What is this? The Trump cabinet?
Oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
Oh God, no! I watch wrestling to escape reality.
Anyway, Titus Welliver. We'll go back to that.
Yeah. So, anyway, he started buying up all of the other territories. So, and like it was a really big shakeup that he wanted to kind of go national, and he was like buying up their TV time and basically buying their companies. So it was becoming the big company, and it basically boiled down to all of the territories kind of accumulated under, like in the Northeast or in the Southeast, WWF based in Connecticut and WCW based in not Florida, Atlanta. So, and that was, it was Jim Crockett Promotions, and then Ted Turner bought it.
Okay.
And Ted Turner,
Atlanta makes sense.
Had a love for professional wrestling, and as I've heard said many times on a few different podcasts, if it had not been for Ted Turner, there probably would not have been wrestling on TNT.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so
which outfit did Thunderlips and Clubber Lang come out of.
Thunderlips would have come out of. So,
In the fictional world of the Rocky verse.
well, what's funny though about that is that at that time Hulk Hogan trained with Vern Gagne in Minnesota, I think. In Minnesota.
Okay.
And then Hulk Hogan signed with he then worked for Vince Sr.
Okay.
And this, if I'm getting the story correctly, it was Hogan got the offer to do Rocky 3, and Vince Sr. wouldn't let him.
Oh.
So I think he went back to Vern, Vern ran the AWA.
Okay.
So I think American Wrestling Association.
I could have guessed that. Go on.
Probably, yes. So I think that's the stories that he went back. And then when Vince Jr. took over, Vince was like, he understood what it meant and like got Hulk back, and Hulk wins the championship from the Iron Sheik.
Okay.
Who the story goes that Vern Gagne apparently told the Iron Sheik, like, don't drop the belt to him, break his leg.
Vern Gagne, I think I know of a pill that can clear that right up.
Oh, yeah. See, it used to be you had to get a shot, but a pill?
No, It's just a pill now.
Yeah. Nice. Excellent.
I think that Thunderlips
medication.
had a bit of Vern Gagne.
He had a bit of the Vern Gagne. Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, no. But anyway, that was the the story, and I think Iron Sheik tells it in the Iron Sheik documentary.
Okay,
which is a fun watch. But and another one from that era with the Iron Sheik, whose talents I did not appreciate until I was much older. But
sure.
So I was into it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Then I had the figures, I had the ring, I had the Hulkamania workout set that did me absolutely no good. And then I was like, this is not for me. And it wasn't until I was in college.
Oh, okay.
I was my senior year in college, and was living with a good friend, Michael Buckley.
Okay.
What's up, Big Daddy Buck?
If you're listening.
Yeah.
Hey.
And huge wrestling fan, like lifelong wrestling fan, got me to watch an episode of Raw with him.
Okay.
And like I had seen the Austin 316 shirts around. Sure. I had no idea what they were about.
You had no idea you'd be wearing one in 2025?
No. It was, yeah.
And that looks like a crisp shirt. Is that a new Austin 316 shirt?
Oh, yeah. This is not from that. I mean, I've had it for a few years, but it's
I was going to say either that or tell me your laundry secrets.
But then I'd have to kill you.
You just sprinkle a little bit of Vern Gagne in there.
That's really the trick.
Everything stays nice and crispy.
Yeah. You just crush up some Vern Gagne, and
apologies to the Gagne family.
Greg Gagne, the son of Vern Gagne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there are others, but no. Vern Gagne is like a wrestling legend.
Okay.
No, he is not. Now we will, and we're going to come back to other wrestling legends who ran territories when we talk about the movie.
Sure.
So,
well,
but
I want to hear just a little bit more about your personal.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on target.
Cool.
So, so fast forward, it's fall 1998, and Buckley's like, hey, just watch one episode of Raw with me, please. Mm-hmm. And I watched it, and I see Vince McMahon. Now, when I grew up watching wrestling, Vince McMahon was just a commentator. I had no idea he owned the company. Now, in 1998, it's like, oh, so we know he owns the company. Like, it's a character. It's still storyline. It's still, as they say, kayfabe.
Okay.
As in fake. It's
go on.
Wrestling and carny language, very, very similar. So, Vince McMahon is in the hospital, And there's like an orderly, with scrubs and a hat on, like just, standing in the background.
And this is a sketch.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
showing Vince. He's in the hospital, and apparently this had not been the first week of this, because previously you had Mankind, McFoley,
Right.
one of the wrestlers who I've met.
Got it.
And he did the whole Mr. Sacco thing and brought in a clown.
Okay.
And they did all these skits. So Vince is in the bed and he's complaining, and the orderly is standing there, and the back is to us. And then he's got a bedpan, and he turns around and he starts beating McMahon with the bedpan. And
oh my goodness.
that was my introduction to Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, okay.
So that was Austin. I was like, so this guy just goes in disguise and dresses up, and he goes like undercover as a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Or is not even a doctor, it's like a nurse, and and he beats up Vince McMahon with this bedpan. And then you learn more about that Vince McMahon had fired Austin, and that he didn't want Austin to hold the championship because Austin wasn't championship material, and that Austin didn't represent the company like a champion because Austin drove pickup trucks and drank beer. And
yeah, I feel like what I know about him is that his shtick is that he drinks beer. But I feel like there's so many other pro wrestlers where it's like, oh, The Undertaker, I have a very clear vision of what this guy's all about. But like Steve Austin just seemed kind of like a blue collar dude.
Yes. So basically, Stone Cold Steve Austin was that blue collar dude who flipped off his boss and like beat the shit out of his boss and drank beer and poured beer all over his boss and did the things that blue collar America wished they could do.
Got it.
And it wasn't like Steve Austin's first gimmick. It was Steve Austin's first character. And Steve Austin was in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to being in WWF, he was a part of the tag team, the Hollywood Blondes. He was Stunning Steve Austin.
Oh my goodness!
And then he was in Extreme Championship Wrestling for a cup of coffee, and then he came over to WWF, and they called him the Ringmaster.
Huh? Okay.
And he just was like bland, and he was like, his job was just like he was a good wrestler because he was a good technical wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And then. Yeah, he could just kind of like, he got really frustrated and just came up, with this character, and was just like, that's mostly himself. And he was just like, I'm just a, pissed off, Texas redneck.
Sure. Yeah.
And, his words. And that's what his character was. And he came out, you just hear glass shatter, and that told you Austin was there. And Austin would drive out in different vehicles, and he'd be like out in the parking lot and dumping cement into like Vince's limo or something.
Oh boy.
So yeah. So anyway, and I
Vince
saw
didn't own the limo. That's the limo company's limo.
No. It was WWF.
Who owns their own limo?
Vince McMahon, WWF.
Oh, come on.
So, so that's what kind of got me. And then also just the matches they had more of a sense of reality to them, and they felt like, yeah, I mean, you knew, and this was also right before the time that the wrestling business kind of started opening up about the way it worked, because it was at that point, with the internet, where things are getting out, and it's like, well, you know what, we can use this to our favor. And I think they have, because I think that the general public at least can know a lot more about what it takes to be a professional wrestler. And it takes a lot of personal sacrifice. And
as we saw in the movie, The Wrestler,
the Netflix series Wrestlers.
Yeah. Our friend of the show, Eric Goslin, who's been on before, was a producer on that.
Yeah. And I mean, that really shows that along, like similarly to the wrestler, shows what it's like for people who like this is their life. This is what they live to do, even if it means, working at the local,
Working the deli counter.
Yeah, working the deli counter.
Yeah.
And so I think that the business opening up and actually letting people know, it's like, yes, there are predetermined endings and it's storytelling, and like they know what they're getting into, but also
It's a great deal of athleticism.
It's a great deal of athleticism, and it's a great deal of pain. Like going through a rigged table is still falling through a table, and like you or I would not get up from that. And you watch these people and what they do and what they put themselves through, both, for themselves, yes, but also for the audience and how they respond. So, and that I think ties in the most positive way possible to our current movie. But
go ahead.
Just to kind of wrap it up, since that time, since I watched that Raw, I have been to, I didn't number these, I'm such a fool, but I listed all of the live events I've been to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 live events.
And they're always happening and they're always touring around.
Oh, yeah. And it's such a fun spectacle. And I took my daughter, who's she'll be 11 in April. I took her this past fall to SmackDown broadcast, and it was going to be like, it was like the quote unquote season premiere. So it was definitely a big episode. Like there was a cage match, and
that leads in perfectly.
Well, it does. And also I will say that my favorite wrestling event of the year is actually coming up. We're recording this episode on Wednesday, January 29th. And coming up this Saturday, February 1st, is the Royal Rumble.
Okay.
I love the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble consists of 30 superstars, and there's 2 Royal Rumbles now. There's a women's and men's Royal Rumble, and the winner of the Royal Rumble gets to challenge one of the world champions at WrestleMania.
Got it.
So they basically get a guaranteed WrestleMania main event.
Got it.
So this is very exciting. I have been to a Royal Rumble. I was at the 2008 Royal Rumble at Madison Square Garden, best known for when John Cena made a surprise appearance in the Rumble, coming back at number 30 several months before he was anticipated to be ready to return after an injury.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. But I also got to see CM Punk in that Rumble, and I got to see CM Punk at Survivor Series 2011, which was known as The Rock's kind of one of his first matches back in a long time after going off to Hollywood. So that was that was a lot of fun. I've gotten to see a lot of the greats perform. I've gotten to see Ric Flair.
Woo!
Yep, indeed. Styling, profiling. Seen, Rob Van Dam.
Well, Dan,
Austin
have you
the Rock.
ever seen Diamond Dallas Page?
Have I ever seen Diamond Dallas Page? I think so. And actually, my Diamond Dallas Page tie-in is that not only I don't know that I've ever really seen him wrestle. He might have been in that Royal Rumble, but I did buy the DDP yoga set. Diamond Dallas Page.
Okay.
No. And this was like when I did it back when I used to do it like every day. I was in fantastic shape, and DDP yoga was he kind of adapted yoga
Sure.
for the type of workout that he needed to kind of rehab his body, because DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, one of the stars of this movie,
Mm-hmm.
was in the wrestling business, but did not actually become a wrestler. He was a manager and kind of a personality. He did not begin wrestling until he was 35.
Really?
Really.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And he, like, it was kind of there was a, long path for him, and he just kind of kept exceeding expectations and working hard. And, he went from having a lot of, he would come out in cigars and big hats and everything. And, when we see him in the movie, this is more of like the later DDP who, world champion DDP. He was definitely world heavyweight champion, not just in the movie.
Right. Which is, I believe that we have some issues with the ways that DDP, went on his path to glory. But I feel like this is a perfect way to kind of get into Ready to Rumble.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you for giving your history of wrestling fandom, which continues to this day.
And John, I'm sure as we discuss the movie and talk about different scenes, I do hope that if you have questions about the various personalities that pop up.
So just as a mindful media consumer who likes to stay at least somewhat informed about like what's happening in entertainment, I know about a lot of these people, and it saddens me that Oliver Platt was not an actual real professional wrestler, because man, oh man, would that have been the way to get me on board with pro wrestling. But I feel like to watch this movie, you don't need to be a wrestling fan. It certainly helps, but it's not, I don't think that it's necessarily a movie that like hinges on you understanding wrestling.
No.
But the thing is, like, we've gotten past the point where it's like, well, wrestling is fake, because the word fake and the words fake and real get in our ways so much, where it's like, oh, it's not like Greco-Roman wrestling.
Right.
It's wrestling entertainment.
It's sports entertainment.
Sure. It's sports entertainment. And it's a combination of acting and sports, because sports is also sports entertainment, traditional sports. But this, requires some theatrics, and it's its own thing. And we've gotten past that. I feel like after the, the 80s and most of the 90s, it seems like we kind of worked our way past that whole wrestling is fake thing.
Yeah. Although I do highly recommend if anyone, go on YouTube and just look up It's Still Real to Me, Damn It. And if you've never watched that video, it's a treat.
Right. So this movie, you go into it and if you are somebody who is entertainment industry minded, you recognize some of these people just from being people who are in entertainment. And, like when Sting comes on screen, there's enough people in the crowd. There's enough people like indicating like, that's Sting. You see somebody wearing a mask with the face, that's the person that you're about to see. Like, you don't have to know the backstory for everybody to appreciate what's going on.
No, it can even get in the way sometimes.
Sure. And also the enthusiasm and the fandom of our two main characters is really what takes us on this journey. So Dan, do you want to give our little synopsis for this one?
Absolutely. Upset by the embarrassing defeat of their wrestling idol, two burnouts go on a mission to find their hero and set him on the path to retake his throne as world heavyweight champion. As our two burnouts, Sean and Gordy. We've got Scott Kahn and David Arquette, a former world championship wrestling world heavyweight champion. Won it right around the time this movie came out. Would you believe it?
Fancy that.
And as our lead Nitro girl, we've got Rose McGowan, and I'm blanking on her name. I'm doing this all from memory.
Rose McGowan. I'm just looking at the cast list right now.
Sasha
played Sasha.
See, I got it. And this is why I kind of did a double take when you said Titus Welliver before, because as Titus Sinclair, we've got Joe Pantoliano.
Joey Pants.
Yep, we've got Joey Pants. Let's see.
The King.
We've got as the King, we've got Oliver Platt, and oh God, what was his? I keep wanting to say Jerry the King Lawler, but it
Jimmy King.
Jimmy King. Yeah. Yes. So, and I think it's kind of like he's partially based on Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, is he really?
Yes. Who I is another one of those wrestlers who's crossed over into the mainstream. And I mean, Andy Kaufman thing, of course. So, Lawler's not in this. Lawler was working for WWF at the time. So, let's see, who else do we have? Chris Owen. We've got Chris Owen in here.
Chris Owen, who you will know from any early 2000s teen movie.
Yeah.
And also 90s movies like Major Payne, which we've talked about on the show. So, I mean, the cast is full of your, commonly seen comedic actors of the time, and also some fun, wrestling. Some of them are cameos, but some of them are just like actual roles.
You have like Caroline Ray as King's. So like, standard early, like Ellen Dow as, of course, like the vulgar old lady who likes wrestling. Ahmet Zappa as the cashier at the convenience store. But you also have Academy Award winner Martin Landau,
right?
Sal Bandini, wanna wrestle? He's so marvelous. He's a lot
of fun in this. He's really fun in this.
His character is based on Stu Hart, the patriarch of the famous Hart family, Bret Hart, Bret the Hitman Hart, the late great Owen Hart. Also Davy Boy Smith, the British Bulldog who married into the family, Jim the Anvil Neidhart married into the family, and now you've got Teddy Hart and Natalia Neidhart all wrestling.
So was this guy kind of like a coach? So Stu Hart would have his trainees come to his house in Calgary. Okay.
And go down to his like gym in their basement, which was called the Dungeon.
Okay.
It was called the Dungeon because you could hear the screaming from the people that Stu would be. He would just stretch them. Like if you came to train with Stu Hart and he was this old man and he'd talk like this and say, and now I'm here. Just pull your arm back here and push your shoulder blade in.
Like William Hinckley?
Like William Hickey. Very much
Hickey.
Very much, it's a popular. So, right, similar, but Stu Hart, just like Sal Bandini in this, Stu Hart, he was this old man, but he would break these people who were like a third his age and twice his size, and he would have them in tears. And he like trained a lot of great, and he had the Hart family ran the Stampede wrestling territory. So a lot of great Canadian wrestlers came through there. But that's who Sal Bandini is based on. There's others like him in the business, but it's definitely Stu Hart.
Sure. So, Ready to Rumble, directed by Brian Robbins, who I feel, really hit it with like Varsity Blues. Yeah. And then it's been kind of like diminishing returns from there. I mean, Varsity Blues, which I did watch in preparation for this episode, I mean, it's not like great cinema or anything, but I feel like it is held in like higher esteem than a Ready to Rumble.
Oh, yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah.
It is very much fun to watch, and it reminded me how much Brian Robbins must have just loved to film Scott Caan's butt, just his bare butt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Scott Caan bare butt in Brian Robbins movies.
I mean, yeah, wow.
Brian Robbins also
You're right about
directed. I watched another movie he did that's from early 2000s. That's I forget what it's called.
Didn't he do Hardball with Keanu Reeves?
He did do Hardball, which I think is also a more elevated one. I like Hardball.
Yeah.
But he also did this one with Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson about kids who are high school seniors who try to cheat on the SATs.
Was it The Perfect Score?
The Perfect Score.
You know who I am almost positive auditioned for that? The aforementioned Big Daddy Buck, Michael Buckley.
Really?
Because I remember him. I remember hearing about that.
That is funny.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. That is that's fine. And did you know? So Brian Robbins, also an alumni, if you will, of Head of the Class.
Right. So he was an actor on Head of the Class with disgraced Nickelodeon producer Dan Schneider, who they clearly got along well because Brian Robbins went on to direct episodes of All That and Kenan and Kel.
Yeah.
He directed Good Burger, which is his first theatrical movie. And so clearly the two of them got along during their Head of the Class days.
Yep. Yeah, so they came out of this and I knew they.
And I think
worked
that
together.
Brian Robbins was like CEO of Paramount at one point.
Yeah, he might have been. Yeah,
I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, he played Eric on Head of the Class, who was like wore the leather jacket, and he was like, "What's he doing?
Guy.
What's he doing in like the AP class?" So, it was. He doesn't sit he sits on the desk. So, but
he turns it's one of those like desks that's attached to the chair, but he still turns it around backwards to sit on it, but then doesn't have a desk to write on.
He's committed to the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned the wrestlers that are featured. I tried to keep a running list here.
Well, first of all, Joey Pants' character is, representing Diamond Dallas Page or promoting Diamond Dallas Page. And he himself also has aspirations of being more of an on-screen presence.
Yeah, well, that character was originally going to be played by the person it was based on, Eric Bischoff.
Okay.
Eric Bischoff was president of WCW.
Okay.
And
it's better for it to be Joey Pants.
So, yeah, no, it's definitely.
With the weird, like, long hair and, like, backwards Kangol cap or whatever it is that he's got going on. I love it.
No, Joey Pants, like bolo tie, perfect.
So much. He's doing everything.
Absolutely. So Joey Pants is playing this version of Eric Bischoff, who became an on-screen character. He was an announcer. He would do play-by-play, but then he became president. And he became an on-screen character. He became a bad guy. He was affiliated with the villainous, insurgents group, the NWO, the New World Order, which you only see in the form of like a towel in this. But the NWO were like the biggest stars in WCW. It was Kevin Nash, who was known as Diesel in WWF, Scott Hall, who was Razor Ramon in WWF, Hulk Hogan, and
I remember NWO in like the late 90s as being like it was a very late 90s thing because I remember seeing a lot of kids I went to school with like wearing t-shirts for it, and it was like the way the design was just so 90s.
It was very
Late
right,
90s,
right,
yeah.
and it was very cool. And
It was
like
very no fear.
their videos were very, their promo videos were very DIY and like black and white and handheld, and
my goodness.
again, very like mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what's funny
Very
is that
Rage Against the Machine.
oh well, what's funny is. So this movie hits in 2000. WCW is already on the downspin. And
Yeah, this is kind of like a last grasp, for a chance to kind of stay relevant.
well, I mean, Time Warner like didn't want anything to do with it. And once that merger, once the Time Warner merger happened, it was like people who've been interviewed about it. And like, I've heard Bischoff talk about it on his podcast 83 Weeks, where like the writing was on the wall and no one wanted wrestling on their roster.
Got it.
They didn't want to deal with it. So I mean, yeah, they did this, and of course, and it didn't, and by the time it came out, none of the people in it were really like popular.
Sure. Okay.
And they were all seen as either like has-beens or never were's, because WWF by this point had kind of won what was called the Monday Night War, because WCW's flagship
I'll never forget
show,
where I was when the Monday Night War went down.
The opening shots of the Monday Night War were fired, I would say, when Scott Hall appeared on WCW Nitro, though some would argue earlier. But it was Nitro. WCW went head to head with WWF Raw, and WCW beat WWF for 83 weeks straight.
Okay.
And then between Stone Cold Steve Austin, the popularity of The Rock, and groups like D-Generation X, all just kind of built WWF's popularity and cool factor. And then it was like, oh, all of the like, cool heels on WCW are all just the old WWF guys.
Got it.
And they're not fun or exciting anymore. So like, and you have a bunch of them in here, and you have like, Macho Man, who like, at that time, that was how he was seen, was just like, a has-been.
Randall Savage.
Yeah. Poffo, please.
Poffo?
Nay, Poffo. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Poffo. Yeah. Randall Poffo.
Son of Angelo Poffo.
Okay.
Brother of Lanny Poffo, also a wrestler. So you have all these like Mean Gene Okerlund, who was like 80s WWF.
Then it's just cantankerous Gene Okerlund.
Ornery Gene Okerlund.
Ornery.
Goldberg, who like
right.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was more popular, and they were both the bald goateed guys who just came in and kicked ass.
I remember my high school choir teacher had a Goldberg bobblehead on his desk.
Wow, that's random.
I don't know. I mean, it's just like he was popular enough.
Yeah,
to have that kind of a vibe.
I mean, so the other former WWF guys who you see in there. So you've got Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, who makes an appearance. You've got Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, who appeared in multiple promotions. Bam Bam Bigelow is in there. And then you have people who like originated on WCW and either eventually went to WWE or never did. So you got Juventud Guerrera, Rey Mysterio, Perry Saturn, Prince Iakea.
Okay.
Makes an appearance. Conan, and no, not the Barbarian, no relation whatsoever.
Or O'Brien.
Right. Or O'Brien. Exactly. That's Conan. And then you also have like referee Charles Robinson, who I think still works for WWE. Okay. Commentators are Tony Schiavone and Mike Tenay. Tony Schiavone still commentates for AEW.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's all the all pretty much all the wrestlers you see in there.
With the very like the 2 seconds and like 10 frames of John Cena in the background, who at the time must have just been like really working his way to becoming anything at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now you know, he's everywhere.
He's in the conversation as like greatest of all time.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I looked
made.
at some like pictures of him from around this time, and it's like it looks like he must have done like bodybuilding competitions too.
Yeah,
the way that he's presented.
Well, that was his original gimmick was the prototype.
The prototype.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, let's go back to my world and talk about Oliver Platt for a second.
Yes,
we love Oliver Platt. One of the cast members of Ready to Rumble that I've seen in person. I didn't like meet him, but at a Q&A for Pieces of April.
Oh yeah. But Oliver and we've talked about Oliver Platt before.
Of course we have.
And we love Oliver Platt.
Flatliners.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started.
Time to Kill. Yeah.
Time to Kill. Yeah. A T to K is great. And so Oliver Platt is such an unexpected actor to be doing this that it makes me really love it.
Yeah.
And by the way, not a good movie.
No.
Not a good movie. I'm so glad that like, even though it's not a great movie, it's something that clearly you can talk about like it without, getting bored or annoyed that we're talking about the movie Ready to Rumble. Also, I think that just like, this is, I'd say peak era David Arquette. He's so active at this time and he's interesting and the dynamic between him and Scott Conn is fun.
Yeah.
And, this is like Beavis and Butthead inspired, the evolution. I think that it would have gone from like, Bill and Ted to Beavis and Butthead to, Gordy and whatever the hell his name was, Sean.
Yeah.
And I think that it's fine. They're not great, but they make sense because when was Dude, Where's My Car? Right after this?
Or right before it.
Yeah. So like there's constant, this is the time where like people are trying to figure out like, okay, what's our matchup going to be of like of burnout doofuses who save the day.
Right.
And sometimes it's going to hit and sometimes it's just going to flop really bad.
Yeah.
And this one was kind of just like mid-level. I don't think that Scott Conn was, I don't know. It seems like his lineage opened up so many doors for him that he wasn't able to like capitalize on. And I thought that he made sense in a movie like Varsity Blues, where he's not a main character. He is, incredibly short for a football player,
right?
But that's not an unheard of thing. But like, he gets a lot of chances. Are you about to say something about Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah. After Ready to Rumble.
Yeah. So after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, Ready to Rumble didn't hit so well. Who's next? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Stifler and Ashton Kutcher. Got it.
Stifler, and I'm trying to remember. I was like, what was the show? Is that 70s show?
That's 70s
Kelso.
Show, yeah. Kelso, yeah, Stifler and Kelso. And honestly, a better matchup.
Right.
Yeah. And
David Arquette also was much more interested in wrestling.
Sure. And David Arquette also had been playing some roles like this. In Airheads, he was a similar type of character.
Yeah.
Less, developed as a character in Airheads, but he wasn't the main character.
Right.
And I don't know, there's also like that juvenile humor that's going into this. Like a lot of it feels like skater culture too. It's like a pre-Jackass, like, making the guy that works at the convenience store, smell our butt sweat,
right?
That kind of thing. Like, it's that kind of humor.
Yeah.
And then you get Rose McGowan in there, who she was just like this indie film it girl.
Yeah.
Like an edgy indie film it girl, and taking on this role that just doesn't feel right for her. And granted, she's been given the short end in major ways.
Yeah.
And so
I don't feel like
is
she
forgiven for any decisions.
I feel like whatever she was doing in her career at this point was whatever she could to have to like keep her
absolutely
career. Yeah. So yeah, Rose McGowan gets a pass. But
yeah, and she's fine, and she does the job fine for what she's given.
Yeah.
It's not an interesting character. It's not a very clever twist that she's involved with. It's barely even a twist at all.
No.
It's a loosely tied knot.
Yeah, it's so but it's like it's so beside the point. It's just it's to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that you look at the careers of Scott Conn and David Arquette, and they both have like these certain points of prestige on them, because you look at Scott Conn and a year later he's in Ocean's 11.
And honestly, like as a utility player, as kind of like number 11 of the 11.
Yeah.
He and paired up with Casey Affleck, he works great.
Great pair with Casey Affleck, yeah.
Great pair with Casey Affleck. The two of them have a wonderful thing going.
I really like Scott Conn.
Oh yeah,
and he has a few lines in this that he delivers really well and are really funny. I love his like suit, his manager's suit, and I definitely Google imaged to make sure
if you're watching the video on Spotify or YouTube, is right behind me.
Which you look at that,
not the suit itself, a picture of him in the suit.
You look at that, and I was like, is he wearing his father's suit from Dick Tracy? And I looked it up. He's not. It's a different color, suit. But it looks so much like it. Oh, damn it! I'm a big James Caan fan.
I like James Caan. I'm not like a big fan, but I like James Caan.
I mean, from The Godfather, I just loved him as Sonny.
You know what I love him in? Bottle Rocket.
I mean, well, yes, of course.
No,
Misery. What is he not great in?
He's always great. Scott Conn. I feel like great utility player. Didn't he do like Hawaii 5-0? Yeah. I don't know if I've ever been wowed by him, but
no, not I would not wowed, but I enjoyed him in this movie.
I remember seeing, there are some social media accounts I follow that post photos from red carpet premieres.
Ah, yes.
And, when Scott Conn is younger, you'd see him next to like Jake Busey or something.
Oh, yeah.
Before the big acting days and stuff. And
weren't they
like
all
the
in
next generation?
Weren't they all in like Enemy of the State with Will Smith?
Was Scott Conn an Enemy of the State?
Let's see.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like I remember Jake Busey being an Enemy of the State.
Jake Busey. I feel like there was a movie that just had like all of them.
Enemy of the State's fun.
I do. Yeah. No, Scott Conn is in Enemy of the State. Enemy of the State. I remember, and when you think back about it, it's like, oh wait, that person was it. That person was in it. Mm-hmm. So, all right, and just brief, and then we're gonna get back to it. But Will Smith, Gene Hackman, John Voight, Lisa Bonet, Regina
Jack
King.
Black.
Yep. Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, well, Stuart Wilson, who but you got and then from that time, like the real, like, oh wow, up and comers: Lauren Dean, Barry Pepper, Jake Busey, Scott Conn, Jason Lee.
Right, Jason Lee, who's great in it.
He's fantastic. Forgot Gabriel Byrne was in that. You have Jack Black, Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy was in it?
Jamie Kennedy.
Oh, I vaguely remember Jamie Kennedy in that.
Yep. And let me see. Anybody else in that little crew? I think that's it.
There you go. Enemy of the state. So, Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
You gave a very brief synopsis. Basically, Jimmy King, Oliver Platt, gets completely screwed over by his promoter, Joe Pantoliano, and is kind of booted from the wrestling world. And his two biggest fans essentially take it upon themselves. They work at a septic tank cleaning company, like porta potty
yeah.
emptying company.
Yeah.
I think that they were just like, what's the grossest job you can have? Got it.
Yep.
And Gordo or Gordy? Gordy, David Arquette's character, his dad wants him to be a cop. It feels very Ted and Bill and Ted, sending him off to military school.
Yeah.
Like, it feels directly ripped from that. And so he wants him to take the police officer exam or whatever. And I don't think that we have learned too much about Sean and his family. I don't think that that's really a factor so much. He's just kind of there.
I think he says something about like his dad not being around or something.
Something like that. Enough so that they don't have to film more scenes.
Yeah.
And
do a whole other backstory.
So they track down Jimmy King, and during the process of trying to get him back into fighting shape and everything, it uncovers kind of the unsavory plotting of Joey Pants's character, and of course culminating in a triple cage match.
A triple cage
Is that a thing?
No, not really. I think they did something similar for like a War Games match. War Games is a match where you have two rings side by side, and they are both enclosed in a cage.
Got it.
So that's the traditional War Games match. And then you have two teams of 4 or 5, and they come in at intervals, and one team has an advantage.
So this triple cage match, it is basically like a wedding cake. You have a larger cage at the bottom, a medium-sized cage, and then a smaller cage at the top. And above that one, there is dangling the heavyweight champion belt.
Yeah.
And it's essentially your mission is to climb to the top and get the belt, and whoever gets the belt wins. But of course, different wrestlers come in and, are teaming up to get people to stop, progressing and everything. And it is Jimmy King versus Diamond Dallas Page. And that's where we get a lot of our big wrestling action going on. I thought that the wrestling scene prior to the cage match that kind of sets up the cage match, where they're like backstage at a wrestling event.
Oh, the one when Jimmy's hiding in the porta potty?
Exactly. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I liked that it was, an unsanctioned, just happening randomly kind of a thing. There were the guys with the cameras there, and so it becomes a thing, but it's like an unplanned event, and it's not taking place in a ring, so there are other added elements in there. I thought that was a lot of fun.
And it's the type of thing that would happen on, a televised wrestling program.
Oh, would it really?
Yeah, but it's fun to see it from this angle, because it's like, this is kind of like,
this is what would be scripted.
We're going to take wrestling storylines and play them like they're real.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of which
is of course a written storyline by whoever wrote this movie.
Right. Yeah. And there are a lot of
Steve Brill.
Oh, right. Yeah. Steve Brill
of the Mighty Ducks, which is funny because you were talking about Goldberg, and I was like, not to be confused with Goldberg.
That's right.
The goalie from the Mighty Ducks.
That's right.
Who farts.
That he does.
Goldberg.
Bill Goldberg, however, does not pass gas ever. The only gas he passes into the gas tank of one of his many collectible automobiles.
Yeah. And we, of course, talked about Steve Brill when we did our episode on Heavyweights.
That we
'Cause you
did.
wrote and directed that.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, and this, I would say this is, perhaps, not his, if I was going to rank his screenplays that I'm familiar with, this would not rank. I mean, Heavyweights would probably.
Mighty Ducks, D2 The Mighty Ducks, Heavyweights, D3 The Mighty Ducks, Ready to Rumble, Little Nicky, and Walk of Shame, which Elizabeth Banks, James Marsden, Gillian Jacobs.
I did not see that.
I haven't seen that one either.
No.
But those are the ones that he has written.
Well, and I imagine this was also like, not a passion project of his.
Not probably a writer for hire.
Yeah. But it's and it, I think it's just a victim of, and there are some people who really do, like, they do their best in this, but it just, it's not the best wrestling movie.
Well, Dan, I would love to know what your favorite wrestling movie is. However, first I want to know, since this is not a perfect movie, what would you do to improve it? What's your idea?
I really couldn't think of a good idea other than, because there's so much, like, the wrestling business now is so different. I mean, the one thing I could think of would be if like WWE remade it, but like almost as a joke. I don't know.
Okay.
It's like, and there have been so many other movies about the wrestling business that they make a movie like this seem like especially pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Because there have been movies like, and I know you said you were asking me, but just like looking in more recent history, you have the Iron Claw, Fighting with My Family, which both tell true stories of people getting into the wrestling business. Iron Claw being about the Von Erich family, and Fighting with My Family being about the knights in England, and Soraya Knight, who as Paige became, I think, the youngest WWE Women's Champion, and was really a great in-ring performer. I think she's retired from in-ring action now. Anyway,
you're changing the subject.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many of these other movies about it that I don't know. I think maybe where I go is more movies about the history of wrestling.
Okay.
And not everyone needs to be a tragedy like the Iron Claw. I mean, like, the Iron Claw actually took some of the tragedy out of the real story.
Sure. Yeah. No, there were actual brothers that, died that didn't even make the cut.
Yeah. So, but I feel like you could go back and you could do more dramatizations of, different stories that, I mean, there are some crazy stories. If you listen to some of these older wrestlers on podcasts telling their stories, like the things that they had to do, times where, like, they barely got out with their lives, people getting stabbed, coming through the audience, people getting stabbed in the locker room. There's a lot of that. And I know that there's some series that cover stories like that, like the Dark Side of the Ring on Vice covers those things. And I don't think it needs to be all like, scandal and sensation, but just like telling the stories of the wrestling business and, just in the history of people doing this and choosing this, like, to make a movie about Gorgeous George.
Is that Curious George's, wouldn't be brother because they have the same name.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Something?
in the George team. I don't in
Sure.
the team of Georges. There's you're either curious or gorgeous, I guess.
There's no
So,
in between.
but no, Gorgeous George, who kind of played this flamboyant character and introduced a lot of that flamboyance into wrestling. The original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers.
Okay.
Friggin' like Ric Flair. Tell the story about Ric
Woo.
Flair. The guy, was in a plane crash and like broke his back.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes. And this was, I think, before he ever won he might have won one world championship at that point. I think it was in the early 1970s.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like Ric Flair is like a machine.
Cool.
That guy is like.
So anyway, what
Yeah.
you're opposing is just more biopics, essentially, of early pro wrestling.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I don't want to I don't really want to see more stuff about like like recent stuff. Like it's kind of weird seeing and like the Young Rock series where you have these actors playing wrestlers and it's like
Right.
even in like
Yeah.
some of the Iron Claw, like the Ric Flair and the Iron Claw, it was just like
Yeah.
I like with my the image and voice of the actual Ric Flair being fresh in my mind, that performance just irked me.
No. And as somebody who is not as familiar with the, physicality and voice of the real Ric Flair, I saw that Ric Flair and I was just like, nope. Nope.
Nothing natural about that Nature Boy.
Nope.
So, John, what would you do?
Well, I feel like Ready to Rumble would be really fun as like a throwbacky animated series. Like 19 like G.I. Joe style animation.
Like Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you do these shows about wrestling fandom and wrestlers and how the two intersect, and you make these kind of like fantasy scenarios.
Oh my God, a Saturday morning cartoon.
Exactly.
Oh,
all right.
That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea. I think, John, man, that's such a good idea. I love it because I can actually picture it so easily.
You can picture it so easily.
Of just like, of these two fans who become like their heroes, like corner guys, basically. And who have these, and like Gordy with his cop gimmick.
Sure.
Thing that he comes in with. Oh man, it works so perfectly. Holy shit. Get on this. Netflix, you're working with, you got WWE now. Like make this.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, well, and WWE owns all WCW. So like and with it animated, you could have.
Oh, you could do whatever.
You could still have Goldberg. And I don't know if you could have Sting, because I think Sting owns a lot of his own gimmick and Sting retired.
Well, I'm sure that everybody has a price. So
wait, were you making an intentional reference there?
Is that what is that?
Ted DiBiase and the $1 Million Man. Everybody's got a price. You made a wrestling reference and you didn't even know it. That's what the $1 Million Man used to say. Ha 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 ha.
Well, you know what? Great. You're welcome. That was my gift to you, Dan.
Oh shit. I love it.
So I don't know if you like actually answered the question before because you were just kind of giving examples, but do you have a favorite wrestling movie?
It's a tough call. I probably would go with The Wrestler.
The Wrestler's really good.
It's just a great movie. And
you got Todd Barry in there.
Todd Barry is so good. And it really represents, I think, like what a lot of like people think that, oh, you're a main eventer, you're at WrestleMania, you're just like made for life. And it's like so many of these guys end up in in bad shape, and they don't,
Yeah.
if they didn't save their money well, because it's like, you're an independent contractor, and especially a lot
Yeah.
of these, guys in the 80s, they spent the money as it was coming in, and
Sure.
that's such a true story for so many wrestlers. So that, and Mickey Rourke's commitment to it.
And I feel like they did a really good job of showing you a fictional pro wrestler that you fully believe could be a real pro wrestler.
Without a doubt. And, and Mickey Rourke did do some appearances around the time of the movie as part of WWE. And I think the lead up to that year's WrestleMania, which was going to be...
Appearances in what way?
He was like
just kind of like, hey, waving to the crowd.
No, I think he got a little involved in the action. I don't remember if he was ever an actual competitor in a match or if he was just in the corner. It was Chris Jericho, I think, in this WrestleMania match, and it was against like maybe it was like Sergeant Slaughter, Dusty Rhodes. I don't remember who else it was. I could easily look this up, but yeah. But I remember Mickey Rourke was involved in that and was on was on, he punched he punched Jericho. And apparently Jericho. He was going to have, I think it was going to be a match. So it was, never mind. I was totally wrong. So the match was Jericho against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka. But Mickey Rourke and Ric Flair got involved.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was that was how that match went. And I think that was WrestleMania 2025.
Okay.
So that was
The Wrestler, Darren Aronofsky, great movie.
Yeah.
I've only seen it the one time. I feel like it's been long enough where I can go back again, because that one is just like, it hits you real hard.
It's a hard hitter. I remember I saw it in the theater,
Fittingly.
And then I think I saw it once at home on DVD.
I feel like, watching it that first time and not knowing how the story would develop and how it would end. After that one, I was just like, whew, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it sits with you for a while. It's not you watch it right away kind of movie.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite wrestling movie?
There are wrestling movies that I do like, and some of them aren't like pro wrestling movies. I mean, I loved Foxcatcher.
I still haven't watched that.
Ooh, I really liked it. I thought it was great. Channing Tatum was fantastic in it. Mark Ruffalo's so good. And Steve Carell is incredible, nominated for the Academy Award for that one.
And there were pro wrestlers who trained.
I'm sure, but like
Kurt Angle.
Oh, really? Yeah. So that one has always kind of stayed with me. Again, another one where it's not you watch it again and again, back to back kind of a situation. Although that one paired with the wrestler would be an intense double feature. Rocky 3.
Dude, Rocky 3.
It's not technically a wrestling movie, but there's a lot of wrestling in it. And, Clubber Lang is canonically a wrestler who, gets involved with boxing. So,
is he canonically a wrestler?
Isn't that how it?
No.
So. He's not a wrestler. He's just at the wrestling match where Rocky is going up against Thunder Lips, and that's where Clubber Lang calls out Rocky.
Yeah. I mean, but also
for the first time, I guess it's the first time you see him.
But Clubber Lang and like,
but Mr. T
Yeah.
does have wrestling.
Well, Mr. T was part of the main event at the first WrestleMania.
Wow, the first WrestleMania.
Yeah, the first WrestleMania, it was Mr. T and Hulk Hogan against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff,
Okay.
maybe.
So, all right, we talked about wrestling movies. I want to know, Dan, if what your thoughts are on wrestlers who have gone from wrestling to non-wrestling acting. So,
Right.
so acting roles that don't involve wrestling.
Well, of course, the aforementioned Roddy Piper in They Live,
Mm-hmm.
though outside of They Live, I don't know about his movie appearances. I would say my favorite wrestler turned actor in terms of like actual acting
Right.
is Dave Bautista.
I agree with you. And I wasn't sold on him as much until I saw The Last Showgirl.
Mm,
I mean, he was really great in Blade Runner 2049.
yeah.
His part was brief, but very good. I didn't love him in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies or any of that stuff.
I
the
liked
Marvel
him.
movies.
I don't love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I liked him.
He was fine, but
Yeah.
like it wasn't until I saw him do more just like real person roles. Cause even like in like Glass Onion, the Knives Out sequel, he's still playing like a, big muscle guy with an ego. I don't think that it says anything about him being a wrestler, but he gives the,
Gives that off. He gives
that
vibe.
off.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, The Last Showgirl, blew me away. So good. He was so good.
He's someone who I enjoyed. I mean, and he started in when he started in WWE, he had like a few minor gimmicks, but I like the early to mid 2000s when he became, the character kind of better known as the Animal, and he joined up with Triple H, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair.
Woo!
To form Evolution. He made a really big impression. I was a big fan of his.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoyed his matches, and was like, yeah, he had a great match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania one year. I mean, great matches with a lot of different guys. And yeah, I've seen Batista perform live, but great actor, man. I would love to see him do stage. Love to see him on Broadway.
I mean,
I'm not kidding.
happen.
Like, I would love to see him, man, oh shit. Like Lenny in Of Mice and Men.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I'm like, because it's rare that you get an actor that can really, like, John Malkovich was great, but like physically did not, like, he was John Malkovich as convincing as Lenny in Of Mice and Men, but like some wrestlers, maybe not Batista, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that Dave Bautista is pretty great. I haven't seen too many things with him where I've been completely wowed, but there, certainly have been times where I've been like, oh, okay, I get it. Last Showgirl being one of them. So other actors or other wrestlers, I should say, turned actors that I want to give a nice healthy nod to. Andre the Giant.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. And we'll give. Speaking of Andre the Giant and also heavyweights earlier, Box Brown's Andre the Giant book, his graphic nonfiction, Andre the Giant Life and Legend. Check it out. New York Times bestseller.
I mean, I think, as far as I know, only the one movie, but I mean, wow. Like, do you need anything?
Is it really only the Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Left quite an impression. I mean, gone too soon, of course.
I mean, perfect casting.
Oh, he was so great. And also like in a non-wrestling role, so much fun.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
the legend of this man just is so incredible. And like, how could you not like Andre the Giant?
Yeah.
So much fun. Of course, there's Hulk Hogan and all of the garbage that he put out there.
Well, and Gremlins too.
Well, yeah, Gremlins too.
No.
But like Suburban Commando and you know,
yeah.
all that junk.
Hulk Hogan is continuing to put garbage out in the world. He got
I know.
booed out of the arena on WWE Raw's Netflix premiere. They brought out Hulk Hogan to shill his beer, and he got booed out of the building.
Did he really?
Yeah.
So, okay, one of the other things we didn't talk about with Ready to Rumble, and we're going so long in this episode, but you know what? That's fine. Listen or don't listen. This is what we're talking about. The soundtrack also is basically like the performances at the like Trump inauguration in 2025.
There's at least 2 Kid Rock songs.
Oh, I mean, as far as I knew, there were only 2 Kid Rock songs to ever exist.
The 2 that are in the
The I'm a cowboy thing,
Yeah.
and then there's the Ba with the
Ba
Ba,
with the
of
Ba.
course. Yeah. Man.
But that, yeah,
What a
no,
soundtrack.
that soundtrack and My Own Worst Enemy, which was, I think, that,
Right.
like had to be on it was like a certain genre, a certain demographic. If your movie was for that demographic, you had to have that song in your movie.
And you know what? I love that song. I'm fine with it.
I mean, when you hear it in the movie, you're like, oh, yep, nope, this is that time in the movie when we hear My Own Worst Enemy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're like, wait a second, is that who is that again? Sum 41?
Yeah.
No. Lit. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, come on.
Well,
I couldn't name you a single Sum 41 song, but I know that Lit.
no.
The only song I know, My Own Worst Enemy.
Yeah.
It's got a great hook.
What else is in this movie? I mean, yeah, I don't remember any of the other songs from the soundtrack, but as soon as you said the soundtrack, it's
Right.
like, oh my God, it's hilarious.
Yeah. I had a good time watching the movie. It's ridiculous. I'm looking at the track list right now. So we have We're Not Gonna Take It, but as performed by Biff Naked.
Right. It is
Yeah.
definitely not the Twisted Sister. We're not gonna
We've
take
got
it.
Bloodstains by The Offspring, Get Ready by Josh Abram and Troy Van Leeuwen. I don't know that one. Ba With Ba, King of Rock, Run DMC.
Oh,
We
right.
have Dweezil Zappa's Diamond Dallas Page theme. So that's the thing. POD Freestyle.
Oh, of course.
House of Pain Jump Around, of
Yep.
course. We Will Rock You. As performed by DJ Hurricane and Scott Weiland. Papa Roach's Last Resort. The Sting themed Baby One More Time. Performed by Ahmet Zappa and Dweezil Zappa. And then Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue.
Okay.
What a bizarre soundtrack.
It sure is. Yeah. It's a bizarre movie.
Yes. And we only covered it because it is called Ready to Rumble, and we are doing a series where we are going up and down the alphabet, A to Z, Z to A. This is our first time covering the R's. We're trying to be as alliterative as possible when we can be. And Dan, before you talk about our S movie, I want to thank everybody for checking the show out. If you're here because of wrestling, welcome. We're not usually talking about wrestling, but Dan will try to whenever possible.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because the
And-
cream always rises to the top.
But yeah, please let us know what you think of the show. Leave a review on Apple Podcast. Email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out all of our stuff on the internet, social media, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, Dan, what are we doing for our S episode?
Our S episode, we're quadrupling the S's for The Secret of My Success, directed by Herbert Ross and starring Michael J. Fox, Helen Slater, Richard Jordan, Margaret Whitten, John Pankow, Fred Gwynn. And
Fred Gwynn, yeah.
so, and Mercedes Rule pops up in there. Yeah, so that's a fun movie from 1987
Yeah.
there. So we'll check that out. I don't think there's any wrestling involved, but still,
I don't remember any, but I have to watch it, and we'll report back.
I don't think there's any Michael J. Fox pro wrestling crossover.
Wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't that? It would be weird if that happened.
Right. The tagline for pretty much every episode of this podcast is, "It would be so weird if that happened."
It would be so weird if that. And ready
I'm
to
telling you,
rumble.
Dan, I've been using that for Letterboxd reviews.
Oh, I've been reading your Letterboxd review. Every time I see that you've reviewed a movie, I'm like, is it going to be? I'm like, yes. And yes, it would be weird.
It can't happen for a biopic or a documentary.
No,
but otherwise, fair game, and pretty much works for every movie.
Pretty much. And you know what? And I think it applies to Secret of My Success just as much as it applies to Ready to Rumble. It applies. No, I think it probably applies more to Ready to Rumble. Oh, shoot. You know what? I will leave you with this, John, because I have never dreamt of being a pro wrestler, but I have had a dream in which I was in the Royal Rumble.
Really?
Yes.
By accident?
In my dream, no.
Okay.
I was there. So in my dream, I'm in the locker room. I'm lacing up my boots. I'm getting ready to go. And I'm talking to The Undertaker, who is going to be the one who eliminates me from the Rumble.
Got it.
Basically, like, I'm going to go into the Rumble, and then Undertaker's going to come in a little bit later. And it was going to be my first match. And Taker was like, look, when you get in there, just hang low in the corner. And then when I get in, you just come at me and I'll take care of you.
Okay.
And it was like we had that conversation, and then I heard my music hit, and then that was it.
Well, Dan, I had a dream the other night that I was buying a shirt at a thrift store for what I thought was going to be like $6, but it rang up as $200, and I felt too bad about saying no, never mind, and then I just had to carry the burden of having spent $200 that I shouldn't be spending on a shirt. Anyway, Dan, as you are going to collect Jimmy King and bring him back to his former greatness, I wish you a great journey.
Good journey.
Woo!
Woo!